Hi, everybody, and welcome to Conversations with Friends. And I'm meeting this person for the first time on Zoom, but we are so connected, all of us at the BK Center, because of the relationship we had with her amazing grandparents. We're going to talk about that, and you're going to understand this better in a few minutes, okay? But first, I want to introduce Monica Vaswani, who's in the world of reality television. Monica is a star. She is known throughout the world of reality television for a series that she's been doing. For Monica, it's so good to have you here. For 3 years, you've been on the air, right, with Family Karma.
Been on the air for 7 years now. I've been working on this since 2017, but 3 seasons.
3 seasons, right.
Yeah.
I know people before I've even met you now that are big fans of you, you know? And I'm a fan too, though. I'm not a regular watcher because I don't watch that much television, but you're amazing. Your life really changed, I would think, drastically. A few years ago, you got a phone call or an email and they said, how would you like to be on our show, right? Is that what happened?
Yeah, I was actually at my desk in my cubicle at work. And I received the phone call and I kind of turned over to my friend and was like, should I do this? Like, my coworker, I was like, should I do this? And she's like, yes, absolutely. And I was like, I'm just going to say yes because I say yes to everything. So I'm kind of, I allow the universe to kind of bring me in things and I say yes and I entertain everything. And sometimes it hits and sometimes it doesn't, but it's, this one did. It did.
So did you understood the premise of this new show that was about to happen called Family Karma? And there's a lot of karma involved in this, and there's a lot of family involved too, right? Well, what happened? I mean, like, how did this all come about?
Yeah, so I really honestly was just kind of entertaining this opportunity. I really didn't understand the premise or, kind of the level of professionalism that was going to be involved in this. Because when I was in college, I used to do a lot of model work, commercial work. So a lot of times, sometimes, you'll do union work, sometimes you'll do non-union work. When this came about, it was something exciting. I said yes to it, but I had no idea that it was for a network like Bravo or NBC. So that was a shock to me. And I didn't realize kind of the layers of how many people were involved with the project, but it was something really excited for me to be a part of. And so I'm very grateful for the opportunity.
And it's so interesting to me that we're talking here about Family Karma because you have been so close to your family and they're all in the show. And that's very interesting to me. And I want to say something about, your grandparents. The Hero Ben and Sham, we've known them for so many years because they have been very, very dedicated Brahma Kumaris long before most people in America and even all over the world were, because they were living in India and they knew the founder. They were close to the founder of the Brahma Kumaris, of Brahma Bhatt. This is so unusual, to have this connection, and now getting to meet you. It's just amazing to me.
It's actually really incredible when you think about it, because my grandparents were really the pioneers for so much expansion within the Brahma Kumaris, and they loved and they dedicated so much of their life to really spreading the word of it. So it's really a proud moment for our family to see them, kind of be recognized for that as well. So that's really exciting. And I always heard, stories when I was younger of my grandmother playing cards with Brahma Baba.
Oh, amazing.
Stories of how she didn't like Karela Bhaji and he would eat it because he had diabetes, or, and they used to have these jokes. And so, you don't realize how special something like that is until, you realize, today, like what the Brahma Kumaris have really become and how big they've expanded. But once upon a time, she really had that close relationship with the center and with everybody within it because it was so small before.
They were pioneers. I mean, your grandmother and grandfather, they were pioneers in a sense, because like you say, the Brahma Kumaris were very small. And in America, nobody, hardly anybody knew who they were. And now it is worldwide. And to think, that they knew him intimately. Especially your grandmother, who was just, all I can remember is, for so many years, since before, of course, she passed away, but that she would come to the center with your grandfather every single week. Yeah. And we would, be together in meditation and connect after class and Sunday mornings. And we spent a lot of time with her, all of us, that were there in the early years and for so many years. So, this is like a real thrill. And I want to say that how I found out about this show was some years ago. Your grandmother said, "Oh, my granddaughter is in this TV show." And I've been in TV my whole life, but nothing like a reality show. I wouldn't even have any idea of how to be in a reality show. So I want to ask you it's totally different than a script. There's no script, is there?
No, there's no script. So you're really relying on, your opinions and your feelings to kind of communicate how you feel in a moment and essentially a scene. So for me, it was, we always joke around about it in our group that it would have been so much easier, like had we had to just memorize a script, right? But when you're playing yourself, you have to really be thought out and, kind of really think and like know where you stand on something before you open your mouth. So that was a lot of pressure, but there's also something so authentic in just kind of seeing your own personal journey through a show and, working with different people and explaining yourself. And it kind of really requires you to be very analytical and it's almost like a giant therapy session in a way where you're really pulling back these layers of who you are as a person. And you're trying to, give the audience the most authentic picture of who you are as a person. And, not always does that hit with, people may not understand you personally, but the best shot that you can have is really kind of just be yourself. And I think that you can never go wrong with that. So whether it lands or it doesn't land, I think the best thing that you could do is just be as authentic to your personality as possible.
So did you find that you were, that was easy? I mean, sometimes you say it wasn't, but did you find that it was comfortable for you to just get on TV and just be yourself? And I'm thinking you deal with a lot of issues. I mean, we're dealing with, anger issues and drinking issues. And all the kinds of things that what could we call it, like the craziness of life in America, family, the influence of especially, and that's the Indian American, conflicts with families, tradition versus the kids. I'm sure you wanted to be, modern American, right? So, did you feel sometimes like this feeling of just like, how do I deal with this issue?
I remember in the beginning when speaking to one of my executive producers, season 1, they would ask me my opinions on certain subjects or things that would happen or like, what I believed in as a woman. And, you have to remember that when I started this journey of family karma, I was 26 years old. So I would answer very authentically and being like, well, I don't really have an opinion. I haven't really gone through life yet to have such strong opinions on things like, me compared to a 40-year-old woman who knows exactly who she is and exactly where she stands on a lot of subjects. I was still figuring it out. And so I would often be like, I don't know what my opinion is. I don't know yet. I'm still going through life. So I'm not so, extremely right or extremely left on subjects. And so it was interesting for them to see the evolution of me as a person from season 1 to season 3 and to see how different I've changed on different subjects. And, maybe where I believed in something season 1 to where I lied on something season 3, you would see this evolution of almost a person going through life, which is so true. I truly believe that as a woman, today I may believe in something, tomorrow I may change my mind, and that's okay. We're kind of all evolutionary creatures. And I think that, to some extent, that's what we're supposed to do. We're supposed to learn lessons and we're supposed to kind of move with the times. So I don't think that I was very firm on any which way of who I was. And I was always very open to learning and changing and evolving. So that's kind of the journey that you see with me personally.
So it really was a journey for you, a journey of growth. But, you're on TV, the world is watching you. That's a lot different, than being out there in the world on a journey. We're all on a journey, but I would think, you have to kind of bare your soul at times, or they wanted you to just be who you were. right?
Oh yeah.
Or whatever you were going through at the time. So were there times where you go afterward, oh my God, like I really, this wasn't what I wanted to say. This isn't what I wanted to come across. I mean, there must have been those moments.
I have to say though, we had such an incredible team of producers where this wasn't your typical reality TV show where they were trying to get you or trying to paint you as something that you weren't. It was all very, very, very real and very honest. And, I think that they really wanted to do justice to the Indian community and our personal journeys. So they never really wanted to paint a character or paint a villain or paint, it was very different than that. They really wanted to do justice to our truth. So I have to say that the integrity of our producers was just, incredible beyond, what I had expected.
Beautiful. So what would you say the audience might have taken as a result of you showing the world, what Indian American life is like? Because it's different from being in India, right? I mean, there's a lot, moving here, the family's moving here, trying to adjust and raising kids, not easy, right? Not the way people from India live in terms of their kids. So they might be changing too. They don't have a choice anymore, right? But I mean, I'm sure there were a lot of challenges, right?
Yeah, I'm the first generation that's been born and raised in the United States. Both my parents were born in Bombay, India. Both my grandparents were born in Sindh. So for us, it was, one of those things where I feel like the audience got to capture a true non-resident Indian life, so they're not necessarily seeing, my parents that just moved from a new country. They're really seeing me balancing, having immigrant parents and grandparents, paying homage and paying respect to that, yet also living where I live and finding that identity of who that makes me and kind of merging the two. So it was the first time that, the audience really got to see an Indian American household, not just an Indian household, because, you can turn on the TV in India and see that, you can see plenty of programs.
All the drama,
but you never really saw an Indian American home. So that was something interesting to see how our journey has been to blend the East and the West.
That's a beautiful thing, the blending of the two. And I think that, you've wanted to keep a lot of your culture, but then again, are there parts of your culture or your history that you say, that's really not for me today? Just maybe relationships or anything. Yeah.
I'll be very honest. I think that I've always been very, very, very proud of my culture and very proud of my identity, almost more being Indian, because there's something that I've always been trying to preserve and protect. I always knew that, one day I wouldn't have my grandparents with me. And I always wanted to hear the stories of what their life was and what their, wisdom to pass on, their stories, their lessons. And I really just wanted to capture it all. I mean, there were so many times where, my grandparents would have me recording them, and I would just constantly want to capture memories, and I would write down, names of a family tree. And I just wanted to get all of the memories and knowledge out of them and preserve it in a box and remember it, because I knew that I wasn't going to have that forever. And there was a certain, I'm an only child too, on top of that. So for me, it's kind of I don't have anybody to offset. Remember, Dadi said this or Dada said that. I had to memorize it all and make sure. I wanted to always make sure that one day when I have children that I can tell them and pass that down to them. So I was very hyper focused on preserving that for most of, my childhood and understanding it to an extent. And then now it's about blending it into my life here. And how do I keep it alive? And how do I keep it going? So, I haven't really felt ashamed or felt embarrassed of anything. I mean, I was the kid that was taking dal chawar in a container box to eat it. I never wanted the PB&J. I always wanted the chutney sandwich.
Yeah, sounds good.
Very proud to share and very proud to have everybody join us and see what we're all about.
So that's really what this series has been about. I mean, it really has. And now your grandparents were in it as well, right? I mean, I remember your grandmother telling me, I'm in it too. I'm in it too. So That has to be very interesting for them to be on the program, and that's part of this whole reality television concept, isn't it?
Yeah.
Families together on a
And I have
show.
to tell you something funny because my grandmother, when we would film, I don't think she really understood that like the guys behind the camera, they couldn't speak to her when they're filming. But it was so cute to see how all she was focused on was like take a close up of like baby Krishna, take a close up of like Grandma. All she wanted to do was really give like her gyan and her knowledge of the Brahma Kumaris to the television show. So she was so happy to be a part of it as long as she got to spread that knowledge. And so it was really sweet to see how excited she was about, being able to kind of share that part of her. And we even had like a clip where she was teaching us laughing yoga and meditation, and that was what she was all about. So she really got to be herself and share the closest part of herself, which was the Brahma Kumaris on the show.
And she loved to share, and she really loved, she was such a talker in the best sense, always sharing, and always your grandma, she had so much enthusiasm, and I'm getting that from you, your enthusiasm, and you're really dynamic. So I'm sure that everybody's really taken by that, and maybe you were influenced at some level by your grandmother. But what have you taken spiritually? Is there anything, at all that you'd say is of all the teachings, and you grew up with all of this, that really you go, that I resonate with, that's really important to me?
I think the one thing, my grandmother taught me so much. I could go on for days and days of all the things that I learned from her, but one of the main things was really karmic accounts, and sometimes in this journey, you're trying to clear accounts from previous mistakes.
Absolutely, yeah.
And sometimes in this journey, you're reaping the rewards of good things that you did in the past. And we're constantly on this journey of trying to, almost find that like enlightenment and that moksha. And, for me, it was really a concept that made sense. You do good, you get good. You do bad, you're going to get bad. And it may not happen immediately, but it'll happen later. At some point in time, all the karmic accounts are going to balance out. So that was a concept that she constantly reminded me of. And, if something bad happened, she would say that this is the drama of life, and like, it's going to go up and it's going to come down and it's going to go back up again. And you just have to keep rolling with it. So there was so many things that, she really taught me about, the knowledge of this religion, just life spiritually, and how we kind of have to go through life, and sharing, tough things that she went through and how she overcame and how she remained centered and calm through the storm. And, I think that that's something really special. And then bringing it back to family karma, everything kind of goes back to karma for me. So.
Good. So there you are on TV, and all these messages, whether it was through your grandmother or through you, these messages are coming out that can help people understanding karma. Like you say, do good, good comes to you. You do bad, well, there will be consequences, at some point, maybe not now, but just a lot of people don't even grow up with this. Some people do, but you really were, in a way, yours was like a total immersion just in your house, and I'm wondering, what did the others feel about you with, your whole lifestyle and everything, and what you've grown up with? It's in the cast. Yeah.
Yeah, I think I'm definitely to some extent posed as, I'm trying to find my way in being a modern woman. Yet I do have very traditional values because I was so blessed to be raised with, my grandmother and my grandfather. And I think that there's so much respect that we all have for that generation and for our elders, but trying to navigate it in today's society, it can be a little bit tough without seeming archaic to some, so there were many times where I felt almost misunderstood, that, maybe people perceive me as being too traditional or too reserved or too conservative. And it's not that, I think that I lead a very modern life, and I think that I, do everything that my friends do, but there's certain limits to what I think I'm comfortable with. And as long as I can go through life kind of upholding I have a very loud conscience inside. So a lot of times, if something doesn't sit right on my soul, like my gut will tell me something. And if I don't want to do something, I don't want to do it. But I think that I've kind of gone through life listening to that gut and listening to that conscience of what's right, what's wrong, what I think is good, what I think is bad. And it may not be the same for everyone. And that's okay. I don't want to ever push my value system on anyone else, but to some extent, I always just want to make sure that I'm sleeping at night, knowing, the consequences of my own actions.
Beautiful. Do you feel that the people around you, like you say, your friends, whether they're Indian American or American, that they're getting that they are getting some kind of lessons from you because you have learned a lot just by being raised with grandparents like that.
Yeah.
You've learned a lot. You don't really need probably say this, but you didn't really maybe need to go to a center. You had the center in your house.
Oh, in the house.
In your life. The rest of us, we have to make this effort because we didn't grow up with it. You had it, you had it right there. So I would think that, this is something that you are this a lot, and I would think you find that people are affected. I'm not talking about the acting part. I'm talking about just you in real life, and maybe on the show too, of course, because you have to be yourself on the show, right?
Of course. And, I think that the main thing for me is I'm never going to get anything fully right. I'm not perfect. And I think that for me, I've realized in my journey of life, that creating connections with people and having friendships and having deep friendships where I keep up with people and I make sure to call and I make sure to check in and I make sure to know what's going on with the closest people in my life, what's
Beautiful.
going on with them. I think that those are the connections that mean the most to me because I really get to share and reflect where I'm maybe going right on something and where I'm maybe going left on something. And I get to have kind of that rapport with my best friends to be I pick up the phone all the time and my closest friend is a family therapist. So I'll be like, hey, I'm really upset about this. Am I correct on this or am I wrong? And I genuinely ask her and sometimes she'll be like, Monica, you're being crazy. No. And then other times she'll be like, I agree with you 100%, but you need to have a close knit group of friends that you can kind of be vulnerable with and see where you're going on this journey and where you're going right, where you're going wrong. And sometimes if I do something wrong, I just say sorry immediately. I'm the type of person where I want to clear it up. And if I go wrong somewhere, I'm I'm so sorry. I had this all wrong. And, I can't sleep at night, unless I clear those things out. But it's really important for me to have, people from all different walks of life, be open with me and to feel comfortable with me and to create that safe space.
So you're really clearing your karma as you go, right?
Oh, I have to immediately.
Constantly. You don't want to go to sleep with any karmic accounts or anything.
No, and I'll pray. I'll say, I'll do my Hanuman Chalisa. I'll do whatever I need to do, and then I say, if I've gone wrong on anything, please forgive me. My conscience is so loud. It'll literally tell me if something is eating me up or not.
Wow. Did you have those experiences on the show sometimes? Maybe you said something and, oh my God, this is something to be on and just be yourself and deal with all these people on a show all the time, regularly. I'm sure stuff came up,
Oh, of course. I had, I did something out of anger one time and immediately afterwards I felt just that was wrong, and I had to picked up the phone immediately and I was like, oh my God, what just happened? Sometimes as a human being, sometimes you say things that you don't mean, sometimes you lash out. And that was the first time that I had really lashed out on somebody. And I remember kind of reflecting and it had been a buildup. It had been a buildup for over a year. And then one day I was just well, this is how I feel, and this is what I think. And I just remember feeling terrible. I felt it did not make me feel better letting it out, for a whole year. Sometimes you bite your tongue on something and that whole time as you're biting your tongue, you're like, should I say something now? Should I say something now? And I'm kind of that person where I'll wait. And then once you push me too far, then I'm going to tell you how I feel. But it didn't make me feel better. it didn't make me feel better at all. I wish that I had never said anything. I wish I had just remained in my own center and like kind of been at peace with whatever it was. I wish that I had always taken the high road. And that was one time where I didn't, and I was very ashamed of it. And I really think that, there was a part of me that like immediately learned the lesson of, sometimes you think that by letting something out, it's going to make you feel better. But when you hurt someone else's feelings, it only brings you down too. It's like poison. It's like you're just taking in the poison yourself. And so that for me, after that day, I was like, I will never, ever I will always take the high road. I will always sit here and communicate nicely. I will always say, I will never use an insult against somebody. I'm going to bite my tongue. So, it was a lesson that I had to go through too, and that's something so beautiful that I learned, in this. But yeah, I think that there's so many moments that sometimes, as somebody who's like in their early 30s where, I quickly see like, oh, and how to get back on that straight road. But it was definitely a lesson for me.
Well, I can see you are very, you're very outgoing, and and you have to be on a show like that. They wouldn't have picked you if you were, an introvert, right? But you're outgoing, but you're also an introvert, spiritually, in terms of you're thinking about all of these things. And in the best sense, you're very aware of what you say, of how you feel. I mean, it's kind of amazing to me, like you said.
I overthink everything.
Thinking about everything. So what do you think? We're almost out of time, and I want to say, what is there going to be a fourth season? Is it being planned right now?
No, fingers crossed.
You're happy doing it. You could continue doing it, right?
I love it. It's been fantastic.
And it's changed your life, I would think. You have so many, I was reading about all the opportunities that you've had as a result of this, not just the show, right? A lot of things have come your way.
Oh yeah, I've been very blessed. And I think that the biggest blessing that the show has given me has been to connect with more people and to really build a community. So, I have a pretty large community based on Instagram, on TikTok, and I'm able to stay connected with everyone. And it's really nice to be able to, kind of meet people too, face to face, and to finally meet people that know you and to stay connected. So that's been the biggest blessing so far. It's been incredible.
How lucky you have been, really, to be able to have this life and to be as conscious as you are and be as aware. It's not like you're in something and you don't even know what's going on inside. You've really done the work a lot. And I'm sure too, as a result of growing up with such an amazing, family, including your dad. We love your dad as well.
Yes. And, one thing that I really want to say is, with any success that I think that anyone sees, I think that it's so important to never, ever let any of this get to anyone's head. For me, even just having this opportunity, there's one thing that I think has been a grounding factor, which is kind of my family and, the center, and just being able to stay so connected to who I am as a person. And I think that if there's one message that I can say today, is just to never, ever, ever let the ego or the accolades or the success or anything like that ever get to you, because I think it's really important to remain, down to earth. And so I think that for me, that's one big lesson, is that I have always said that, my grandmother's a very reminding force of just kind of being a soul at the end of the day. And none of this means anything. So it really brings it back to that lesson.
How fortunate you have been to have been able to learn these lessons. Thank you so much. It's just a thrill to get to interview you or get to meet you. Om Shanti.
So much love. Om Shanti.